Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. As Donald Trump's reckless war with Iran stretches on indefinitely, the man is transparently desperate for a win, any kind of win in the Middle East. And to that end, he shocked the world this week by announcing a big nuclear agreement with, of all places, Saudi Arabia. Basically, under the terms of the deal, as we understand them, Saudi Arabia will be able to develop a civilian nuclear program, which does include enriching uranium, which can be weaponized, and in exchange, American companies will make billions by building the infrastructure for said program. That's basically the terms of the deal. Now, if you know anything about the art of Donald Trump's deal making, and at this point, don't we all, you're not going to be shocked to learn the deal is a lot less impressive than it looks. In fact, it seems to be already falling apart. Today, after the agreement was already signed, right? They announced the agreement's signed, there's pen and paper. Donald Trump is desperately trying to alter the terms via social media. Writing the agreement, quote, is totally subject to Saudi Arabia joining the very respected and successful Abraham Accords. In other words, normalizing relations with Israel. Now, the Saudis have long maintained that such a process would require Israel to recognize a Palestinian state, which Benjamin Netanyahu's extreme right-wing government has vowed will never happen. And that's even before Israel responded to the October 7th terror attacks by a mass campaign of death and destruction in Gaza that killed an estimated 15,000 children. So the Saudis are, I think it's fair to say, not pleased with the alteration to the deal they already made, announced the day after on social media. The entire thing might fall apart now. Who knows? Because of the slapdash way Donald Trump put the whole thing together. And now, basically, everyone is furious with him. And the Israelis are really furious because the deal left out the only part they care about, right? The Saudis are presumably not going to agree to join the Abraham Accords. The Middle East hawks here at home think the deal was too lenient in its safeguards against the Saudis possibly making a nuclear weapon since they're not going to be able to enrich uranium. And so now Trump's Secretary of State has to run defense for him.
Doesn't having a less than gold standard agreement in the Middle East run a risk?
Well, I'm not going to opine directly on that agreement. We're going to put out even when the moment is appropriate, we'll put out that in writing. We have to do it with Congress anyways, so we'll certainly do it publicly. But suffice it to say, the U.S. is not going to reach any agreement with any country in the world that leads to the risk of proliferation.
I mean, in point of fact here, Marco, the reason you're being asked about this is the president put out the announcement about the deal, right? Frankly, it's kind of beside the point. The Saudis have a mutual defense pact with Pakistan, which does quite famously have nuclear weapons. It's long been speculated the kingdom could simply acquire a nuclear weapon from them if it so desired. But the hawks are still angry. Everyone is angry. And so we were forced to ask the question, wait, where did this come from? Why did Donald Trump make this deal, announce this deal that everyone suddenly hates so much? And there's a few possibilities worth considering, which are illuminating to the broader context we find ourselves in. One is that he is completely flailing in the Middle East right now. I mean, hour to hour, minute to minute. The Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen are firing at Saudi tankers in the Red Sea across from the Strait of Hormuz. This is another shipping channel, which could lead to a wider regional conflict. It also means that oil can't get out of there. Iran, meanwhile, has kept the Strait of Hormuz shut. They've been firing on oil tankers. Passage through the strait is back down to the low levels it was during the hottest days of the war. Oil, in turn, has crossed $100 a barrel again. Gas prices then, as the dominoes fall, are back up well over $4 and still rising very, very quickly. I bet you've noticed this in the last few days. I sure have. Trump is also cratering in the polls. The last few days have seen some of his worst polling we've seen this year by far. He's responding by threatening war crimes constantly on the phone, on TV, on social media, which the populace, by the way, has no appetite for. And throughout all this, Fox is basically looking into the camera and begging him to end this war.
Well, I think the president's in kind of a tough spot here in that sense. And, he promised to keep us out of endless wars or unsatisfactory wars. And now he's in one, and it's not at all clear how it's going to end. So he's vulnerable on this point. And I was in political terms, he does need to get this over with.
And with the midterm elections a little more than 100 days away, the clock is ticking for President Trump to get out of this war before voters head to the polls. It's making a lot of Republicans nervous. It's already, as we know, unpopular. According to the New Washington Post Ipsos polls, 69% of Americans disapprove of the handling of this conflict. Republicans cannot let this become an endless distraction, especially if they want to win in November.
Wrap it up, says Laura Ingraham. Let's get this show on the road. Okay, so one possibility is, given all that context, Trump's just desperate for a win, right? Like, oh, look at this. Look, I did something. Maybe he thought a deal with the Saudis would somehow give him a parachute to escape the political crisis of his own making he is currently trapped in. It's not exactly clear how he thought that would happen, but it would at least explain why he rushed into an agreement he is now desperately trying to get out of and renegotiate the terms of less than 24 hours after announcing. Of course, the other possible reason Donald Trump made this deal, and one we truly have to consider, is that there was a quid pro quo after all. It's just not the one that Israel wanted. After all, Donald Trump's family sure does make a lot of money from the Saudis. Remember when the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund gave Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner $2 billion out of the gate for his investment firm over objections from some of its advisors who on the board of the fund were like, this doesn't check out. Why are we doing this? And keep in mind, Jared Kushner is still gallivanting around the region with Trump's buddy Steve Witkoff, ostensibly trying to broker peace deals while also continuing to raise money for the fund. Meanwhile, the Trump organization has a $10 billion deal to develop a bunch of so-called luxury properties throughout Saudi Arabia, including in Riyadh and on the West Coast near the Red Sea. In fact, as Forbes reports, in 2024 alone, Trump and his family made an estimated $50 million just from their dealings with Saudi Arabia. Now, of course, Trump says he doesn't do any of this wheeling and dealing directly. This is all taken care of by someone else, and it has no impact on what he does as president. And you can decide if you think that's credible. Regardless, no one disputes his family benefits financially. No one's disputing or denying that. When you consider that context, it seems at least possible that Trump would want to cut the Saudis a pretty friendly deal. And again, it is not like this is unprecedented. We've just been through this right before the inauguration, right before. An official from the United Arab Emirates, just down the peninsula from Saudi Arabia, quietly struck a $500 million deal with the crypto company founded by the sons of Donald Trump and, oh, look at that, Steve Witkoff. Not long after, the Trump administration reversed course on a binary policy and allowed the UAE to purchase and import high-end processing chips used for AI that had been banned before that they desperately wanted to get their hands on. The White House would like you to believe that was a coincidence. What I will say is that it sure looks like on multiple occasions now, the Trump family received a quid from a foreign government shortly before that country received a quo from us, the United States, via official policy. At the end of the day, we can't really say for certain if this deal was born of flailing incompetence or corruption or some combination of both or some other third thing. All we can say definitively is that every single decision this president makes, almost without fail, particularly in this region, is making everything worse.